They are warned from the beginning of the difficulties of maintaining a high ethical level in the profession of the clergy, that the pressures on them probably are greater than on any other section of society. The individual who is dedicated to doing it right has more enemies than probably anyone else in the world, simply because people do not want to do it right if it interferes with doing what they want to do. And religion has to be so conditioned that it is available as a spiritual reference frame, but nobody is expected to live according to its rules. This is a tax upon almost any idealistic minister. It is a problem that he has to face, and it is a problem that has driven many out of the clergy. The fact that it is a struggle to maintain a church in which you can teach people to be more honorable and at the same time hold the congregation. They tell you, yes, they believe everything you say, but they do exactly as they please in their personal relationships. So this problem still requires a great deal of conditioning. Now, probably one of the interesting elements of this point is that if we think of deity as a factor of retribution only, we also have been asked theologically the question whether deity can damn parts of itself. Can deity cast part of its own creation into hell? This seems to be a rather unlikely situation. So what we commonly think of as punishment from deity is simply the reaction of our own attitudes which are incorrect. It isn't deity damning us, it is ourselves getting our own lives into conditions that we cannot solve. We do not know what to do after we finally paint ourselves into a corner. So in those emergencies sometimes we do what the sick man does. We go to the doctor, but as soon as we feel better, we forget the physician. This type of thing brings with it a sense of why have we grown up this way? Why is it that from childhood on we were not taught a few simple facts? Why are we not able to discriminate now? Why are we still shopping for religion? Why are we still striving to get as much as we can and give as little as possible? Why are we perfectly willing to vote for somebody who promises a gain that somebody else has lost? We don't know why we do these things. But one of the reasons is the school system has failed us. We should have known better by the time we got out of grammar school. We should have graduated from high school with determined and dedicated values in ourselves. We should have a clear vision of what is best for us and best for the community, and realize clearly that when we compromise our own integrities, we are responsible for our own misfortunes. So we get up to the point, almost to retirement sometimes, in which we have never accepted or experienced the need for integrities. They are something other people should have. They are something that the world certainly needs, but they're something that interfere with our doing what we want to do. And that's a mistake. If, however, we could get some form of educational structure, and parents are beginning to worry about this more than a little. All over this country and in many other countries also, parents are getting together to form organizations and groups to supervise the moral life of their children, and their own moral lives for that matter. They are beginning to realize that if there's to be any integrity, honesty, kindliness, sympathy, understanding, and true progress in humanity at this stage of things, it has got to come from personal effort. It cannot be dependent upon the major institutions which we have created and which we have thoroughly corrupted. So all over, people are beginning to think of trying to do something themselves, to warn their children, to warn their friends, to indoctrinate young people with better ideas and convictions. And the young people are beginning to notice it. They are beginning to create a new concept of what constitutes a peer group. They all want to follow the example of the most popular member of their class or in their school. But when they see this popular member in the hospital as a hopeless narcotics addict, he doesn't quite look like a peer anymore. He does not seem to have the glamour. The glamour that came from living wildly is damaged when you see what happens to the wild livers. They get into one difficulty after another. And young people who are still not completely under the influence of economic pressures are beginning to see the facts of life. They are beginning to realize the mistakes they're making, and they don't wish to continue them. We also have the same problems arising with older people who are continuously killing each other on the road with their accidents, who are drunk driving and narcotics addict driving, and one by one these glamorous personalities fade out in misery, sorrow, and distress and death. This type of thing is affecting young people. Here, experience, observation, and reflection are coming into their own. But this is being forced upon them by their own mistakes. There should be some basic standard acceptable to persons in all ages, by means of which the more grievous mistakes can be avoided or prevented, or if they exist, corrected as speedily as possible. Now we get out into the big world of knowledge. Here we have science. Here we have the great discoveries which are threatening the survival of humanity. We are getting these discoveries from the great institutions that we have regarded as infallible. It is the great university and the great laboratory that is now giving us the great headache. And yet we are assuming, or taught to assume, that these people who are creating these disasters are the greatest, noblest, and most thoroughly trained of our citizens. That they are the ones who know. They are the ones who have gained the full advantage of education, but are graduating without any realization of responsibility to humanity. Education is in for trouble. And this trouble is spreading, and it's spreading now. The time is very much in sight in which there has to be a new estimation of what constitutes knowledge. We have to begin to realize that knowledge without integrity is the greatest falsehood of all. That the knowledge of advancement and progress must be measured in one thing. The only way in which progress can be properly estimated is in terms of securities. Securities are those values the practice of which will bring no detriment to anyone. We have to realize that the entire problem of our modern way of life is that we must find out what constitutes progress. Is progress just simply complication? Is progress a substitution of a robot for a human mind? Is progress the enlargement of nuclear research? Is progress the rising value of gold on the stock exchange? Is progress wealth? Is it the exhaustion of natural resources? Is it the permission by which we allow our planet to be ravaged of everything that is of value? Is progress proven by crime, degeneracy, disease, mental breakdowns, and death? If so, then progress is not worth cultivating. Progress must be